What's going on, guys? Marco here with Front Yard Fantasy, and I am bringing you 3 year 2 breakouts that you guys need to know about right now. All right, so let's jump right in. I've got 3 players that I am all in on. The first one is a wide receiver. It's wide receiver for the New York Jets. I know, scary, but it's Elijah Moore. I think right now what a lot of people are expecting from Elijah Moore is he's a low-end wide receiver 2, high-end wide receiver 3 with some upside weeks. And that's kind of where he's being valued. I think he's actually being valued technically a little bit lower than that in redraft leagues. But for your redraft or dynasty leagues, here's why you should target Elijah Moore. He is likely to lead this team in targets. Sure, Zach Wilson has a lot of developing to do, but with a myriad of different quarterbacks, Elijah Moore last season from week 7 to 13, and I know what you're saying, well, that's a random stretch of games. Week 7 is when he started really getting involved in the offense, and then week 13 was his final week before the injury. He didn't really play much after that. So I don't know actually if he played at all after that. So week 7 to 13, it's not arbitrary. This is basically when he was on the field, when he was actually playing wide receiver for the New York Jets at the most consistent clip. So in that time, he averaged 17.66 fantasy points per game. 17.66 fantasy points per game. That is absolutely elite production for the wide receiver position, especially as a rookie wide receiver. And he did that with Mike White. He did it with a couple other quarterbacks. And, Zach Wilson, I think, was a part of some of those, but really not many. And that might be a knock for some of you. But here's the thing. Zach Wilson, I truly believe he will develop at least to some extent. And even if Zach Wilson takes a baby step forward to get to, here's what we're shooting for, guys, Mike White level production outside of his insane game, If that's the bar, Zach Wilson can meet that this year. He's right now, all the reports out of camp are that he is basically never leaving the Jets facility. He is studying tape nonstop. And so, sure, that's all narrative, but I think Zach Wilson can at least take a baby step, which is all he's going to need to do to get Elijah Moore to be seeing, the clip that we are expecting for, especially his ADP right now, to match that. I think that's not something that's outside the realm of possibility. They added Garrett Wilson, which is a for sure concern, but all reports out of camp are that Garrett Wilson has shown tons of flashes. He is obviously going to be a phenomenal player, but he has to learn the offense. He has to go through all of the rookie growing pains. And he is someone who I think mid to late season might come on a little bit more. But this is likely a season where Elijah Moore is the go-to target. Corey Davis is actually probably on the field, at least early in the season, a little bit more than even Garrett Wilson is. And so I think Corey Davis and Garrett Wilson might be fighting for targets while Elijah Moore is the safety net out of the wide receivers, I should say. And he is the guy who can kind of line up on the slot or in the slot. He can line up outside. He can kind of do it all. And if you take his pace from that week 7 to 13, the 17.66 fantasy points per game, and you project it over a 17-game season, that would have given him 300 fantasy points on the season. It would have made him wide receiver 6 behind Jamar Chase by 4 points. And here's what I'll say. I do not project him to score 300 fantasy points. I do not think he will be the wide receiver 26. But right now, he is a screaming value. In dynasty leagues, he's fairly difficult to acquire, and I totally understand that. So I'm not saying go break the bank for Elijah Moore. But I see Tyler Lockett 2.0 in Elijah Moore's game. He is a phenomenal route runner, elite route runner. He is phenomenal after the catch. He is one of the guys who will make Zach Wilson better as a quarterback. He is one of the guys who can do a lot with a little. A.J. Brown is one of his mentors and has talked about him. They were on a college team together as someone who can do it all. And I don't think he's obviously A.J. Brown level efficient, and he has a very different build than A.J. Brown, but he has lighter shades of that. And so that's why I think Elijah Moore right now is a screaming value. He could be someone that if you add in your dynasty leagues, could be potentially a top 15 wide receiver or more once we get to 2023, 2024. He has a little bit more time to develop. Hopefully Zach Wilson develops and this Jets offense kind of turns into the identity that they're hoping to go down or turn into over the last few months that they've been adapting and bringing in. So I think right now Elijah Moore is a screaming value. His year 2 breakout is coming. I have him inside my top 20 wide receivers for 2022. And like I said, once you get to 2023, all bets are off at what this guy's ceiling is. I think right now, what you should do is go acquire Elijah Moore in redraft, draft him around ahead of where he is going. I am definitely okay with that. Some trades that I think would be interesting for Elijah Moore. If you could trade Brandon Ayuk and a 2023 second for Elijah Moore, I'm doing that deal. And I love Brandon Ayuk. A lot of you guys know that already. If you can trade Allen Robinson and you aren't a contender right now, if you can trade Allen Robinson for Elijah Moore, I would make that deal. There's a lot of different trades. It's entirely team dependent. So hit me up on Twitter at Marco_14P. I'm happy to answer any questions. You can drop stuff below. I'll get to those the best I can as well. But Elijah Moore right now is headed for a breakout season. When you look for these markers of a breakout, you got to see these stretches of games where they're on the field producing at high production clips, elite production clips like we saw from Elijah Moore, but you also need to make sure that they're doing the finer things of the wide receiver position correctly when you're looking at wide receiver specifically. Route running, big one. What they're doing at the catch point, big one. What their release package looks like. And Elijah Moore's is phenomenal. I think he has one of the best release packages in the NFL. And that's different ways to get off the line, essentially, and to break away from these DBs. Separation. He can separate like no other. His explosiveness out of his cuts. Everything that you want to see from a developing young wide receiver, Elijah Moore checks those boxes. 17.66 fantasy points per game. Do not sleep on him. All right, the next guy I'm talking about is a running back. He's coming off of a Lisfranc injury, but all reports out of camp is that he has been the highlight of the entire Jacksonville Jaguars camp, which probably isn't difficult, but it's Travis Etienne. Now, like I said, he's coming back from a very serious injury. There's not a ton of history of young players, young running backs specifically, coming back from this injury because it just doesn't happen that often. It happened to Julio Jones, I believe. I think he was a little bit older than Travis Etienne when it happened, and obviously we know what Julio Jones did. Totally different situation, I understand. But again, there's not a lot of information and data to pull from historically with this injury. But like I said before, Travis Etienne, all reports out of camps are that he is a go. James Robinson's reemergence onto the field, it matters. Don't get me wrong, it matters. But we might be seeing a split where Travis Etienne is probably seeing 60% of the rushing opportunity. And when it comes to receiving opportunity, I think Travis Etienne could take around 65 to 70% out of the backfield. And so James Robinson is relevant. He matters. I don't think we're going to see 100% James Robinson probably until 2023. The Achilles injury is one that you're not really supposed to be coming back early from. I think by week 1, he'll be 2 months. He'll be returning 2 months later than Cam Akers returned last season, and so 2 months isn't nothing, but it's significant, or it's not that significant. So as much as James Robinson is a phenomenal player, I believe in his talent, the Achilles injury is much more alarming to me than the Lisfranc. I think Travis Etienne is someone who showed us in college I can run the ball really well. He has some vision issues that we want to make sure he can refine, but Jonathan Taylor did that last year. And I'm not saying he's Jonathan Taylor, but I mean, it can be done. We've seen it done, especially from these first round running backs. Also in college, he decided, his junior year that he was going to incorporate route running and pass catching into his game, and he did it at an insane clip. He surpassed over 1,000 receiving yards as a running back in his last 2 seasons in the ACC for Clemson. They combined for a little bit over, I think, 1,200 yards. And so Travis Etienne is a guy who is coming off an injury. He's not being valued where he is. I've said this. I've tweeted this. I've said this on shows and podcasts and everything. Travis Etienne is the most underrated young dynasty running back in the NFL. We don't know how long James Robinson will be on this team. If you can get him in dynasty leagues right now, do it. In redraft leagues, he's going at the beginning of the 4th round. The beginning of the 4th round. There is a scenario where you could leave with a wide receiver in the 1st round, DeAndre Swift at the top of the 2nd round, a wide receiver or Kyle Pitts in the 3rd round, and then go ahead and take Travis Etienne at the top of the 4th. I don't know a better situation. And speaking of DeAndre Swift, that is the breakout you should be expecting from Travis Etienne. He is the next DeAndre Swift. He is the next potentially Alvin Kamara. He has that within his range of outcomes because he is so explosive. He can do it on the ground. He can do it through the air. He is going to be the primary motor to this offense for the Jaguars. He is Trevor Lawrence's safety blanket. And honestly, I tweeted this out quite a while ago, but if you add up the career totals for the career total reception totals for every single wide receiver or the top 8 wide receivers on the Jacksonville Jaguars, there is still roughly 265 targets available from what Trevor Lawrence did last year. Travis Etienne is going to see 80 to 100 targets in this offense. I'm promising you guys this right now. And I know we shouldn't take hardline stances like that, but you have to hear it. Do not miss out on the PPR value that Travis Etienne is screaming in your face right now. Okay? All right. So let's look at my final guy as a year 2 breakout. It's Justin Fields from the Chicago Bears. I will admit, I'll confess, I'm a little bit of a homer here because I am a Chicago Bears fan. I'm a Chicago native. But here's what you need to know about Justin Fields. Last year, on an offense that wasn't built around him, wasn't built for him, wasn't schemed for him, the plays weren't called for him, he was on pace for 600 rushing yards if he would have played the whole season. I think he ended up with like 490 or just under that or something like that. But he was on pace for 600 rushing yards in an offense that there weren't any designed runs for him. Their offensive line is bad. He will have to run the ball, but they're going to incorporate designed runs in this new offense. Eberflus is already talking about what they can do with Justin Fields on the ground and through the air. This is a team that their defense lost Khalil Mack. They added some guys in the secondary, but they're going to probably be trailing in a lot of games. This is a team that won't be winning a lot, which means Justin Fields will have to be running and throwing all the way through the fourth quarter. He is a guy who you're going to want to have, and he's going as QB 17 right now in redraft leagues. In Dynasty leagues, he's a little bit harder to get your hands on, but still, he is one of those guys where if you've believed in Jalen Hurts in any point of his career for your fantasy football team, you should think that Justin Fields is going to be an absolute superstar. Jalen Hurts last year, I think, had 785 rushing yards in 15 games, and that's wonderful. He had 10 rushing touchdowns. That's awesome. But his weapons last year really weren't that much better than Justin Fields. Cole Kmet, Dallas Goedert, I think, pure talent-wise, they're very, very similar. I lean Cole Kmet for just his upside, his potential, but we haven't seen it yet. So right now, I'm going to say they're pretty close. Maybe the edge goes to Dallas Goedert right now. Darnell Mooney and rookie Devonta Smith, I think those guys are pretty close too. I think in the long haul, Devonta Smith's probably a more of a true alpha number 1 wide receiver, where Darnell Mooney fits in as a NFL wide receiver too. But still, the weapons that they're going into the season with, from last year for the Eagles and Hurts to this year, Justin Fields and the Bears, I think they're very similar. I think Justin Fields is a much better passer of the football. His rushing upside is very similar. I think he is probably a threat to rush for 750 to 800 yards. And I don't think that's crazy to say. So Justin Fields is a guy who has the rushing floor to give you safe weeks, and he has the passing ability to give you the blow-up weeks. I have him right now on the season as my QB 10 for 2022. Justin Fields breakout is coming. Do not let yourself miss it. All right, guys, hit me with your comments below. Any thoughts you have, hit me up on Twitter at Marco_14P. Dynasty redraft questions, I'm happy to answer anything you got for me. And I think that's it. All right, so thanks for hanging out, and we'll talk to you next time. Peace.